Well, good morning. Thank you for joining. Nice to see you all. So we're going to go ahead and start a 60-minute gentle flow. We'll begin with a comfortable seat. So take a moment to get settled on your mat. Either coming to seated easy pose with the legs crossed, or you can bring the legs on front of you, whatever best suits you in this moment. Just feel really established in your seat, really grounded, sit bones rooted, sinking like a stone. Notice this upward lift through the spinal column, natural lift, so try to avoid any sort of sense of slouching. Keeping the head just squarely stacked on the spinal column, chin parallel to the floor, and bringing the attention inward, so perhaps closing the eyes if that's comfortable, and you can always keep a soft, gentle gaze to the floor if not. The message, I'm just going to check. So just begin to bring the awareness to the breath. Notice how the inhale gives a slight lift upward through the chest, and also breathing into the four sides of the ribcage, the front, the back, and the sides. Notice the expansion outward of the inhale. And on the reverse, the contraction. When we're in a contemplative state, we're simply observing what is happening. As the seer, the drisht, witness what is happening. The autonomic nervous system takes care of itself, breathing, pumping the blood, beating the heart. You as the witness sit back and observe. And then notice those times when the mind gets carried away, perhaps contemplating something in the past or projections into the future. When that happens, just bring the awareness back to the breath. I was on a darshan a number of years ago with Amrit, our teacher's teacher, Hasu, who reminded that by focusing on the breath, we instantly anchor back into the present moment, since we can neither breathe in the past nor breathe in the future. It sounds so simple and something that's so obvious to all of us. Yet it's a great reminder that when we get distracted, when the mind gets active and transports us into the past or future, all we need to do is just bring the awareness back to the breath, and that'll instantly anchor us into the present moment. Now let's go ahead and bring the palms pressing together. Bring the thumbs toward the sternum at heart center, Anjali Mudra. Pausing here and noticing now as you inhale that the sternum lifts gently into the thumbs. And the exhale receding away from them. And next, with the hands pressing together, just start to take them forward and then separate them out to the sides. Really reach and extend the fingertips. Squeezing now the shoulder blades together in the back body, and then on the exhale, bringing the palms back together in front and thumbs back to the sternum. So just a few times now, taking the arms out in front and to the side on the inhale, and the exhale, drawing them back together in front and bringing the thumbs to the sternum. 2 more times, nice and slow, moving with the breath. Feel sensation in the body. Really draw the shoulder blades together as you take the arms to the side, and then they separate broadly as you bring the arms out front again. Last time now, as you take the arms out in front of you, out to the side, and then drawing them back together in front. Hands coming to heart center. Beautiful. Now we'll raise the arms overhead, straight up. Separate them shoulder width apart. Now there's more than 2 different movements, but just focusing on these 2. Lift the fingertips really high. Feel the lift coming all the way from the shoulder girdle down to the waist. Scapula come a little bit apart in the back body. Now draw the shoulder blades together, but keep the arms raised, and notice the different sensation in the shoulder blades. Just playing here a little bit with the movement of the shoulder blades, which we notice in poses like down dog here. So lift high, and then draw the shoulder blades down together. Now coming back to neutral position, turn the torso toward the right hand side and lower the limbs down. As the left palm falls onto the right thigh, let the right hand come to the floor behind you. You can gaze over the right shoulder, feeling the beautiful twist all the way through the torso. With that back hand, you might have the palm on the mat, or for most of us will be more on tented fingers, but press through that back hand to get more lift through the spinal column as you keep rooting down through the sits bones. So always thinking of elongating the spinal column. Breathing deeply here. Keep the left palm on the right thigh and raise the right arm straight up toward the ceiling. Now here, again, reach high so you feel the lift coming from right from the waist all the way up to the fingertips. Start leaning to the left-hand side, but keep the right sit bone rooted down. Feel more broadness through the right side of the chest wall, and you can gaze under the raised arm sort of up toward the ceiling, or where the ceiling meets the wall across the room. Now sit back up squarely on the sits bones. Lower the right palm to the right hand side. Raise your left arm up to shoulder height. Sweep it around in front of you all the way over to the left hand side. Rotate at the ball and socket joint. Inhale that arm up and over as you come towards C curve here. Now reach those left fingertips toward the wall on the right. Feel that broadness in the left chest wall. Breathing into the intercostal muscles. Make sure you don't collapse into this right hand. It's just gently propped on the ground. And notice that the left sit bone remains anchored down as well. Now here's an option to move the head side to side if that feels okay for your neck, or just keep it in alignment with the spine if that feels better for you today. We're going to keep the left arm raised as we press off the right arm and now raise the right arm up to meet it. Now we'll turn the torso to the left hand side and lower the limbs down with the right palm onto the left thigh and the left hand to the floor behind you. Excuse me. Once more, as you press through that back hand, elongate the spinal column. Feel a full twist through the torso. Gaze over the left shoulder. Remember to modify as needed, and if your neck is feeling tight or tense, you can just keep the chin over the sternum facing forward if that's better for your neck. Now keep the right palm on the left thigh, raise the left arm straight up to the ceiling to start. So again, really feel that lift coming shoulder girdle, side of the left rib cage, and even the waist, reaching all the muscles upward here. Start leaning over toward the right hand side as you keep the left sit bone rooted down. Turning the gaze slightly to the ceiling. And sitting up squarely again, now lowering the left hand down to the left side and raise that right arm up to shoulder height. Sweep it all the way around in front of you. Rotate here at the ball and socket joint. So now the thumb faces back, palm up. Inhale that arm up and over. And C curve on this side now. Again, avoid collapsing into this left hand. Maybe turning the head side to side. Beautiful. And you can keep the left hand down as you sit upright and lower the right hand down to the opposite side. So I know for pretty much everyone here, longtime practitioners of yoga, I just wanted a quick reminder on the word purpose of yoga. A quick reminder about the most benefits in yoga might come from Patanjali wrote in the Yoga Sutras roughly 2,000 years ago, and scholars debate this precise timing of the first recording of it. But one of the aphorisms of the 196 that exist is in the Sanskrit, Stiram Sukham Asanam. It basically means the pose is sweet and steady, or the pose is there's solid, it's established in that steadiness, but there's a sweetness, so a sense of ease. So never going to the point beyond your edge where you're feeling a sense of struggle. So as we move into the more active poses of the practice, you always want to feel the breath is flowing easily, that it's not belabored, you're not struggling. So keeping that in mind, if we ever find we've gone too far, we can just back it up a bit. Great, let's go ahead and transition toward hands and knees. As we come to tabletop position here, placing the palms under the shoulders and spreading the fingers wide, I'm going to work on just a few of the foundational elements. I know you have all been practicing a long time. You've heard all these before. Sometimes it's a good reminder, recap here. We straighten the arm as much as we can without locking out the elbow joint. And then externally rotating the humerus. So notice the elbow pits, which if you just place the hands relaxed, they face really more toward one another. You want those to start to turn forward slightly. This helps to engage the musculature of the arm and protect the shoulder girdle. This becomes particularly important on hand balances, whether we're doing crow or even plank. So you can practice that in our tabletop position here as we move through cat and cow. On the exhale, rock the pelvis in, tuck the chin to the chest, lift the center of the back high. On the inhale, notice the pelvis going back as you take the chin off the chest and gaze forward. Flow with the breath here. Exhale, coming to cat. Inhale, coming to cow. Excuse me. A few more times. Excellent. And as you come back to neutral, so we'll just start, and the hands can be mostly under the shoulders here as we take small circles with the torso in one direction. We'll make a larger expansion of the range of motion shortly, but for now, just small circles, a few times in one direction, then the opposite direction. And coming back to center, now you might choose to walk the hands a foot or a foot and a half forward on the mat. And again, with the torso moving in a circular motion here, noticing the increased range of motion. As you bring them out to the left-hand side and through center, almost like you're coming down toward a high version of cobra. And as they come around the backside, almost like you're moving toward child's pose, but moving continually in a circle here. And perfectly fine to keep the arms closer under the shoulders if that range of motion is more ideal for you. Now coming the opposite direction. Really feeling the movement undulation in the spinal column. You can bring some movement into the head and shoulders as you're moving around in this circular motion. Great. and eventually coming back towards center. And with the hands, again, still about a foot or foot and a half in front of you, we'll start to bring the pelvis forward, like we're going to bring it onto the ground. And then as it comes down, bring it back now towards, like you're going to child's pose. And coming up again, bringing the pelvis forward. So we're sort of this time now just undulating the spinal column forward and backward. So between an extended child's pose and lifting out as you're coming down with the pelvis almost reaching the ground in a high cobra. So back and forth a few times here. Excellent. And coming back with the hips above the knees, walk the hands back underneath the shoulders. So we're going to come to some plank pose. The benefits of weight bearing on our own muscles and is really optimal. I'm going to offer, since this is more of a gentle class and maybe some people are looking for less vigor, that you can do this version with the knees down. Is more optimal than having the hips lift higher. So the reason I accentuated the arms in our tabletop positions, that's what we're looking for in our plank to help protect our shoulder girdle, but also if you do lower the knees, you're still working the arms. You're still getting a lot of activation without having to take the legs up. So place the hands, spread the fingers wide, external rotation of the humerus so the elbow pits face more forward than inward. Take one leg behind you with the toes tucked, the other leg behind you, lifting into a high plank position. So again, notice this long line through the body. Try to avoid lifting the hips if you grow tired to a half downward dog. Rather, drop the knees if that's if you feel you need to have a bit of a rest with the the fullness of the body here. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and drop the knees for a moment. Pausing here, I'll take a plank again in a moment. And the next aspect I want us to focus on is the adduction. So you don't need to have a block at home, but I want you to envision if you had a block in between your upper thighs, that when we come to our plank, you're squeezing that. So that's an adduction. Adduction coming together. Think of ADD, adduction, different from abduction, ABD. Abduct is taking away. So when we're taking a leg away from the median line, adduction, we're gathering in together. So even if you don't have a prop, you still have that sense as if you're squeezing a block. In this, our next version of plank, again, plant the palms, external rotation of the humerus, lifting one leg back, tuck toes, the other back, and coming up to a plank. Long line through the body, and that adduction now, like you're squeezing a block in between your upper thighs. And remember to rest when you need to. You're in charge of your yoga practice. Each practice is individual, so honor when your body asks you to take a rest. And perfectly fine to drop the knees and keep the activation in the arms if you're feeling you can still do an aspect of the pose. Perfectly fine to come to child's pose at any point as well, whenever you need to. Great, let's go ahead and drop the knees. And let's come to child's pose now, sinking the buttocks back to the heels. We'll lower the forehead to the mat. If your forehead doesn't quite reach the mat, you can rest the forehead on stacked fists or stacked palms, finding some way to, in child's pose, allow the back muscles of the neck to relax so that the head isn't floating in air. So we're going to say an extended child's pose. So if you've had your arms alongside your body, bring them out in front. Your forehead is still on the mat. We're going to lift the fingers the hands onto tented fingers, spider tip fingers. And then walk the hands off the left-hand side of the mat. Continue to sink the right sit bone back to, well, both sits bones back to the heels. The right might have a tendency to come a little higher as the arms come to the left, so focus more on sinking that back. You can keep the hands on tented fingers, or you can lower down onto palms And a little additional sensation, if you're looking for, you can take the right palm onto the back of the left hand. If the hands are stacked, go ahead and unstack them. If you're on your palms, lift to tented fingers, walk back through to the center of the mat, and coming to the opposite side as you walk the hands off the right hand side of the mat. Again, option to drop onto the palms, option to take the left palm onto the back of the right hand, keep sinking the sit bone back to the heel. Keep the forehead toward the mat. If the hands are stacked, unstack them. If the palms are flat, come to tented fingers, walk back to center. We're going to now come up toward down dog. So, again, plant the palms, spread the fingers wide, external rotation of the humerus here as you tuck the toes, knees bent, lift the hips and knees up, take the hips back. Keep the knees bent to begin with in a warm up here. So we'll drop one heel as you lift on the tiptoes of the opposite foot, moving slowly side to side as you warm up your dog, pedaling it out. Notice that the heel that drops, you're pressing into the opposing palm. You can slowly begin to straighten the legs a little more so as you continue pedaling out your dog and maybe coming to now a full four-legged dog. You might like to warm up by raising one leg high to the ceiling and coming to a three-legged dog. Keep lifting backwards out of the palms press firmly on the mat, extending and lifting the hips further back. If you do raise one leg, you're coming the opposite, so balancing out the sides. Another nice way for warming up your dog is to take one leg behind the other, bringing it back to the mat so that the little toes are touching one another. That's a really nice way to warm up the back of the calves. Yeah. And again, doing both sides. And as always, take a rest when you need to. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and drop down to our knees. And back to child's pose. We'll take a couple of breath rest here. And from child's pose, lifting back up to down dog. And we're going to start to walk the feet toward the hands at the front of the mat, coming into a hanging forward fold. So bending the knees deeply, belly is resting on the upper thighs, the torso is spilling forward, head hanging heavy, arms heavy like empty coat sleeves. And we're going to ragdoll up here. So keep the knees bent, keep the chin tucked to the chest, and let those arms hang really heavy. Pressing through the feet, start to stand slowly as you unfurl each vertebra one at a time. And eventually as you come up towards standing, the last part up, the chin comes off the chest. We're going to slightly roll the shoulders back. Sorry, just a moment here. So, standing in mountain pose. Feet about hip width apart, pushing through each of the 4 points of the foot. Feel an upward and inward lift in the inner thigh in particular, hugging the muscles of the thighs around the bone. Spinal column long, chin parallel to the floor. That imaginary string out of the crown of the head gently lifting you upward here. We're going to inhale the arms out to the side, palms face up, and bring the arms up overhead, palms facing one another, and down to heart center. And again, down to the side. External rotation, palms face up as you bring the arms up overhead. And down to the side again. Once more here, bringing the palms down to heart center. So we're going to move toward some swan dives and a sun salutation. So from the front of your mat, you circle the arms around. Now hinging at the hips, lead with the sternum to come hanging into a forward fold, arms heavy, torso hanging forward. On the inhale, we come to halfway lift or diver's pose. You want to have a straight spine here, so you might bring your palms up, partway up your legs. And exhale, coming back into a hanging forward fold. And then reverse Swan dive. Now bend the knees deeply, circle the arms around, press through the feet, rise to stand, hands overhead, and down to heart center. Great. So we'll move through a couple sun salutations, incorporating downward dog and plank that we've already introduced in this practice. So taking the arms out to the side, coming forward into a swan dive here. Hanging forward fold. On the inhale, halfway lift. On the exhale, hanging forward fold. Taking the right leg back behind us. Planting the palms, taking the left leg back behind us. High plank position, or modified by dropping the knees. Holding for a few breaths here. Adduction, hugging that imaginary block between the thighs. Remember the hand placement, external rotation to protect the shoulders. And then pressing back to down dog. And then you can either swing one leg forward and then the other, or hop forward, or step forward, whatever variation works for you to come to hanging forward fold. Reverse swan dive, circle the arms around, up overhead, and back to heart center. And we'll repeat that once more here after we take a brief rest in Salutation. Second half of the pose here, focusing on the breath. Just noticing sensation in the body, noticing the state of the mind. And second time now, circle the arms around, up overhead. As you come hinging at the hips into a swan dive, hanging forward fold. Torso very heavy as it hangs forward. Inhale, diver's pose or halfway lift. Exhale, hanging forward fold, planting the hands. Take the left leg back behind you. Take the right leg back behind you. High plank position or modify as needed. And pressing back to down dog. And we'll make our way to hanging forward fold. So either swing the legs forward or just like hop, whatever works for you. Hanging forward fold. Reverse swan dive, sink the knees, sink the buttocks as you bend the knees, circle the arms around, up overhead, and down to heart center at Anjali Mudra. Beautiful, good work, excellent. And just taking a moment here, breathing. Okay, we'll come toward a little bit of a warrior sequence. So we'll stand at the front of our mats in mountain pose. As you root down through the four corners of your right foot, we're going to take that left leg back behind us. So to start with, we're coming toward warrior lunge. So keep both hips facing forward. So rather than warrior two where we turn the hip out, we want both hips facing the short edge of the mat. The forward knee can either come directly above the ankle or behind it, but make sure your knee isn't coming ahead of your ankle here. Not really great for the joints. We're going to keep the center of gravity slightly further back, the torso up right here, and inhale the arms up alongside the ears. Now for some people, you might be able to drop the heel of the back foot, but keep the left hip facing forward. For some of us with tighter hamstrings, tighter calf muscles, you can just keep lifted on the touched toes. So this is warrior lunge at the heels dropped with the hip facing forward, full warrior one. Beautiful. Now we'll transition to warrior two. So now drop the back heel. Notice how this hip turns out to the side and lower the arms down to shoulder height. Same arm forward as the knee that's bent forward. And the foot that's back, that arm reaching back, arms in opposite direction here. Slightly draw the shoulder blades together in the back body so that you expand the upper part of the chest here, clavicles coming apart as you reach the arms in opposite direction. We turn the gaze over the forward middle hand. there's actually more weight on the back foot than the front foot, and also make sure you're not pressing into the toes on the front foot. So you really want to be on the 4 points of the foot, each inner and outer edge of the heel, the big toe mound and little toe mound. And by that I don't mean I'm talking this part of the foot here, not the toe mound itself. Big toe mound, little toe mound. So really rooting to those 4 corners of the feet. Holding our warrior 2. Now Exalted Warrior is rotate that forward palm, raise it overhead, and drop the back palm onto the back thigh. So we're doing this with the bent knee. Sometimes you can do Exalted Warrior with the knee straight. And we'll come back to Warrior 2. So we're going to prepare for Warrior side angle. So keeping the arms out at shoulder height to begin with. So modification is take the palm onto the thigh, right palm, raise the left arm overhead. We want the torso to be revolved to the left edge of your mat. So if in any variation you start to notice your torso starts to turn more to the mat, I'm going to invite you to back up to this position, palm on the thigh, arm raised overhead. If you have space to do so, you can bend the elbow and bring it onto the knee, bent, or the thigh, and bring the arm alongside the ear. So again, make sure we don't start to turn the torso here. We're not getting that beautiful muscle work in the back if that's happening. So we want to have a beautiful twist in the torso. Making sure we're not collapsing the weight of the right arm into the right thigh. And in fact, I'm sure you've seen some people will practice with the right arm raised as well alongside the left arm like you're holding a ball. So that you can experiment with that just to make sure that we're not collapsing the weight down here. But certainly feel free to bring the arm back onto the leg. And lifting out of here back to Warrior 2. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and straighten that forward leg and let the arms come down to the side. So we'll do a little bit of breath work, a little bit of pranayama here. So between a bent leg Warrior 2 and a straight-legged Exalted Warrior. So sink down into Warrior 2. Now as you straighten that forward leg, raise both arms overhead. And then back to Warrior 2. Now flowing with the breath, beautiful fluid motion between these two positions, rather than static Warrior 2, straight leg. You want this beautiful, it's almost like this dance. Inhale, the arms overhead. Exhale, back to Warrior 2. So with the natural rhythm of your breath, really feeling this beautiful fluidity between these two poses. Excellent. Great. Next time we come down to Warrior 2, we're going to pause here. So option, we're coming toward the front of the mat in a hanging, in mountain pose. There's an option here to pivot on that back foot, tuck the arms out to the side and spring forward. But if it's preferable for you, you can just certainly step forward as many steps as you need. Coming to the front of the mat, mountain pose. Pausing here, samastitihi. And the second half of the pose, connecting with the breath and sensation in the body, just observing if there's any different sensation from one side to the other. For some there may be, for others not. And we'll come to the opposite side now in our Warrior Lunge, or full Warrior 1 if you're able to drop the heel with the hips facing forward. The left foot facing the short edge of the mat, we'll take that right leg back behind us. So again, either Warrior Lunge with the toes tucked, or if you're able to drop the heel with both hips facing forward, full Warrior 1, center of gravity slightly further back, torso upright. Inhale the arms up alongside the ear. Now, like we did earlier in the class with the difference between the arms, where is the arm placement here? So you can reach the fingertips high and lift the shoulder blades, spreading them wide. Otherwise, we're going to come to the more traditional version. Draw the shoulder blades together. The arms are still raised, active, engaged, broadness in the upper chest, shoulder blades coming slightly together. Beautiful. Now transitioning to Warrior 2, if the feels raised, drop it down and turn that hip to the long side, more to the long side of the mat as you lower the arms down to shoulder height. Warrior two, turning the gaze over the forward middle fingers. Holding here in warrior two, just changing my position. You can see the Zoom class. Beautiful. Just remember, more weight on the back foot than the front. One of my teachers for years would have us practice this with the forward leg on a chair. Often we think of chair yoga as being more about inactive, maybe seniors or people with mobility challenges. Sometimes practicing with chairs really helps to inform the sensations we're looking for in our body. You want the weight pounding through that back foot, almost like you're nailing a nail into a wall. And by practicing with the upper foot on a chair, it helps to get that sensation. Notice you're not bearing the weight into the front leg. Exalted Warrior, now rotate that forward palm, raise it overhead, drop the back palm onto the back thigh. Now, if it's better for your neck, you just want to keep the chin parallel to the floor and gazing directly forward. But in many poses, if the arm is raised and it's okay for your neck, you can turn the gaze to the raised head. Again, Stiram Sukhanasana. Sweet, steady pose. I'm not going to do something if it feels a little bit of a tweak in the neck. Not going to do it. So honoring the body. Listen for those messages, those intuitive messages as to what is best for you. We'll move back toward warrior two. And a little bit of breath work first. Just change the positioning around a little bit here. Straighten that forward leg, let the hands rest at the side for a moment. So before we come to our side angle, we'll just incorporate a little bit of pranayama. Come back down to warrior two. Now, as you straighten the leg on the inhale, take the arms overhead. And as you exhale, you come down again to warrior two. Inhale, beautiful fluid motion. Arms overhead. Exhale, arms to shoulder height. Inhale, straighten the leg, arms overhead. Exhale, bending the leg, arms at shoulder height. Maybe 3 more times here. Really feel the breath coming deeply into the lungs. Excellent. Back down to warrior two. Now we'll come to our warrior side angle. So option to rest the palm on the thigh, raise the arm overhead. Perhaps bring the elbow onto the bent elbow onto the bent thigh, onto the thigh of the bent leg. Bringing that right arm alongside the ear, reaching the fingertips toward the wall on the front side of your mat. Again, keeping that torso revolved. Just make sure that the right arm isn't sort of drawing the torso to turn toward the mat. You want to feel this beautiful revolve position in the torso. Option again to raise that left arm like you're holding that ball. Just creates a little more heat. It's just an option, perfectly fine. Keep the arm on the leg, but make sure we're not collapsing the weight down into it. And we'll lift back up to warrior two. Preparing to come toward the front of the mat in mountain pose. Option, pivot on that back foot and slowly spring off of it and coming forward. That movement of springing forward, you might remember actually sometimes we do it with weights in the weight room, or it reminds me of high school where we do types of movement. It's not really yoga, but such an crucial aspect of maintaining the fitness of the muscles responsible for our being able to do stairs into our old age and for decades to come, so that we can still climb stairs when we're 90, 100. Blessed be if we can reach that age, right? So let's come toward a standing balance pose here. I'm going to repeat Vrikshasana, which we did last week, to Again, focus on the two primary elements, which I think are important and sometimes get overlooked. Feel free to come to a variation, a different balance pose, standing balance pose, anything, Natarajasana, dancer, anything you like. If you prefer not to do tree, move this off. So, in our tree pose, remember, active leg, hugging the muscles to the bone, straight as possible without locking out the joint. Tiptoes of the opposite foot. So I've got my right foot on the ground, tiptoes of the left foot. Keep the hip gathered inward and upward here. Open that left hip out to the left side. Rest the left heel above the inner ankle to start. We start our adduction here, so pressing the ankle into the heel into the ankle, vice versa. Option to take the foot off the mat and bring it onto the leg. Maybe the sole of the foot onto the calf, inner calf, or above the knee onto the inner thigh. Ideally avoiding the knee to prevent any sort of torque that may occur there. You can bring the hands to Anjali Mudra, here, hands at heart center. Take them anywhere you prefer if you'd like. You can actually take them out to the side like you're holding a tightrope pole for balance. Remember to keep the openness in the hips. If you have the hands at Anjali Mudra, I invite you to start raising them up overhead. And then separating the arms wider than shoulder width. Drawing the shoulder blades together. And soft, gentle drishti gaze. Beautiful. Any variation that feels appropriate for you. Excellent. As you now draw the hands down alongside the body. And release the leg. And then intuitively responding in any way that feels like it brings a sense of ease or equilibrium. Whatever that is. It might be shaking out the legs. It might be whatever. Respond, listening intuitively to what your body needs. We'll move to the opposite side as you root to the left foot. Tiptoes of the right foot, and then open that right hip out to the side. And begin just by pressing the ankle above the inner, the heel above the inner ankle. Left hip inward, muscles hugged around the bone. Feel upward lift through the spine. If you wish to take the foot off the mat, bring it onto the leg, either to the calf or the thigh. And then adduction here. So similar with when we're imagining a block between our legs in plank. The adduction here is to press the foot into the leg and the leg back into the foot. So gathering inward here, adduction. Notice how it activates the hip flexors more so. More activity going on in those hip flexors. And then of course, palms at heart center and raising the arms overhead. Arms coming a little wider than shoulder width. Soft, gentle drishti. So let the hands come back down through center. Releasing the leg. And then responding in any way that feels like it brings some relief. Super. We're going to be moving down to, so most recently before our latest closures here, I was doing 75-minute classes, and I'm more accustomed to doing 90-minute classes, but as I checked the time, and this is a 60-minute class, and I want to be respectful of the time that you've committed. You may have other commitments following, so I'll make sure to finish on time, but I certainly am going to have to tighten up the flow here to make sure we get through each class covering different aspects. So we'll come down to a seat here. We're going to come into a little bit of a twist here. So notice on your seat, you want to walk the flesh off the sits bone. So these are the anatomical term ischial tuberosities. It's those little bony nubs on the bottom of the pelvis here. You want to feel them firmly rooted. We're going to take the legs out in front of us, Dandasana for a moment here. So hug the muscles to the bone. So the difference between relaxed and active here. Now elongate the spinal column upward, chin parallel to the floor. Now notice, are you working all the micro muscles of the back to lift the spine high? You can bring the palms alongside the body, press down through the palms. See if you get more lift through the spine. Keep the sits bones rooted. Good practice here. Elongate the spine. Take the palms off for a moment here and see if you can keep that long lift still. Beautiful. Woo. Legs are growing tired. Bring the palms to the side. Excellent. Go ahead and relax that a little bit. We're going to cross the right leg over top of the left, the sole of the right foot on the mat. We're going to hug the right shin in with our left, either the left palm, or for some you might actually be able to bring the elbow pit around the shin. We'll take the right arm out in front of us at shoulder height. Sweep it all the way around to the right hand side until it goes no further, then let it come down to the floor. So press through that back hand, give lift through the spinal column. Turn the gaze over the right shoulder. Keeping the outstretched left leg active, the dorsiflexion in the foot and the muscles are hugging around the bone. Now, I know for some of you, you're probably accustomed to doing this. Some people do this after, if you're a jogger or whatnot. Different modalities use this stretch. Some people like to take the arm off of the shin and bring the back of the arm to the outside of the thigh, which actually gives a little bit more of a deeper twist here. So that's a modification you're certainly welcome to do if you're accustomed to that practice. Remember to keep the active leg stretched out forward. Sitting up high on the sits bones. We'll raise that right hand off the mat, bring it around in front. We're going to uncross the legs and move to the opposite side. As you bring the left foot across and the left sole of the foot onto the mat, activating the outstretched right leg. Hugging the right palm on the left shin, left arm out in front of you. Or again, you might have the right elbow pit, whatever is best for you. Take the left arm around, out to the side, left hand side, lowering it down as it reaches the back. And again, press through there to give additional lift through the spine. Gaze over that left shoulder if that's okay for the neck. And modification again, option. Take the hand off the shin, bring the back of the arm to the outside of the thigh. Some people do it with the arm straight, some prefer to do it with it bent, depending what gives you maybe more leverage in the twist of the spine. Beautiful, raising that back hand and coming around back in front. Excellent. Good work. Go ahead and uncross the leg. So we're going to scooch forward as we come down onto our backs. So arms just alongside the body. And we're going to come to goddess pose or reclined cobbler. So I want you to bring the soles of the feet pressing together, letting the knees splay outward here. Now you can either keep the arms alongside the body or bend at the elbow and rest the palms on the belly. They might rest fingertip to fingertip, or bringing the forefinger and the thumbs to touch in a diamond pattern and just resting that around the navel. If you have rested the hands on the belly, observing the breath here, notice on the inhale the belly rises up into the hands, and the exhale falling away. So just taking some time here, connecting with the breath. Go ahead and bring the knees together. So lift the knees, feet off the mat, hug the knees into the chest. So sort of a reclined child's pose almost. And then we'll come to Happy Baby, Ananda Balasana. So as you take the soles of the feet up in the direction of the ceiling, you'll want to take your hands and grab where you can. For some, maybe it's just on the back of the thighs, for some on the calves. If you can reach the feet, whether the outside or inside edges or peace fingers around the big toes, you draw the knees in the direction of the armpits. And this really helps to spread the low back wide. Now you can either remain stationary here or gently moving side to side. So, really beautiful broadening of the low back. Continue to draw the knees gently, gently. This is a very gentle, relaxing, easy pose. Gently drawing the knees in the direction of the armpits. And no struggle. If you have a hard time reaching the feet, be more relaxed and let the hands come onto the legs. Beautiful. Go ahead and release the legs. So letting the soles of the feet come to the outside edges of the mat again with the knees bent. The arms out to the side. We're going to drop both knees over to the left-hand side. So they're so wide apart that the back knee is sort of coming toward the instep of the left foot. And then lifting the knees upright through center to the opposite side here. So see if you can keep the shoulder, the opposite shoulder from the direction which the knees are falling. In this case, the left shoulder on the mat. So the knees might not reach the ground. And bring the legs back up to center. So we're going to come back to the first side. So drop the knees to the left-hand side. So you can either keep them here with the right knee coming to the instep of the left foot, or bring that right leg stacked right on top of the left. So both legs stacked together here on the left-hand side. Right shoulder still glued to the mat. If you want a full twist right through the entire spinal column, you can turn the gaze over the right shoulder. So anytime you've got the head turned to the opposite side of the body, bring it back to center first before moving anything else. Bring the legs back upright. You might like to drop them again now to the right-hand side with the knee near the instep, or stacking them as you come to the right-hand side. Left shoulder on the mat. There's other variations of this. For example, you could cross the right leg over top of the left thigh to give additional twist here, the right knee coming down, different variations. So really it's about this beautiful twist in the spinal column. So whichever variation gives you that really lovely movement of the twist, moving the organs around in the more relaxed state than some of the more constrictive poses here in a yoga asana practice. So again, if you're looking over the left shoulder, bring the head back to center. And we'll raise the legs back up toward the ceiling, soles of the feet flat on the floor. Great, we have about 30 seconds more before we move to Shavasana, the final resting pose of the practice. So if you need to grab an article of clothing or something like that just to feel comfortable, otherwise, listen instinctively for any last minute movements your body might be needing or requiring or requesting of you, and honor that and respond to that natural wisdom rising within. And that natural wisdom might be saying, I'm done, ready for Shavasana. So honor that as well, and go ahead and grab whatever you might need to feel a sense of comfort and warmth. We want to make sure you're not feeling any sort of draft in Shavasana here. Just winding up any last minute movement or grabbing any item of clothing you might need. So as we come to Shavasana, laying flat on the back, the legs splayed out in front of you, letting the feet fall slightly out to the side. The arms resting alongside the body, maybe 15 degrees off center. So traditionally, keeping the arms straight, back of the hand on the ground, palms facing up. I know some people like variations. You might actually even bring the palms onto the belly. Entirely up to you. If you want to keep this sort of more traditional version of a corpse pose, arms alongside the body. If the head is collapsing backward, tightening the back and neck muscles here, see if you can elongate that, rest the head more on the occipital ridge. Creating an openness in the Sushumna channel, the energy channel of the body. shift to that sense of being rather than doing. Many of us have been had it so entrenched in us to always be doing. This gift of learning to relax and let go is so precious. To take time to let the parasympathetic nervous system rejuvenate, rest. So scan your awareness through the body and just look for any areas that might still be holding or clenching or gripping. And if you encounter that without judgment, just invite more relaxation and spaciousness. Even envisioning as you breathe with your breath having returned to just a natural rhythm, notice as you inhale, you invite in relaxation, restfulness. As you exhale, releasing any tightness or tension. Inhale, restfulness. Exhale, tension. Gently begin to lengthen the breath slightly. You'll start to make some very small, quiet, and slow movement. Maybe that's just starting with wiggling the fingers and toes, or even rubbing the finger pads against the thumb. Just start to softly reawaken the body. Gradually expanding the range of motion, you may rotate the wrists and ankles. And many enjoy a big stretch like you're awakening from a sleep. Maybe bring the arms along the ground and stretch them out. And finally, hugging the knees into the chest. And rolling onto the right-hand side in a fetal position. Pausing here for a moment. Really feel cradled and nurtured by this planet. Supported. And I love the imagery of shifting from Shavasana, corpse pose, to this fetal position as a reminder that every instant is a new beginning. Every instant is an opportunity to begin again. Rebirth. The past is behind you, and you have this moment now. So transitioning to an upright seated position, stretching out the upper leg, pressing in the upper hand as you find your way to a seat. We'll just take a moment to close our practice. So I invite you to bring the hands to Anjali Mudra, thumbs at the sternum. And take a moment to acknowledge yourself for making time for your practice and your self-care. And the light in me acknowledges and bows to the light in you. Javagon and Namaste. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. For Zoom, if you just hold on a quick moment, I'm just going to stop the other recording of my